Mark Harper was not your typical 32-year-old. He was a young single dad, living in a modest apartment in the heart of the city, raising his 6-year-old daughter, Emma, entirely on his own. His life had become a delicate balance of work, parenting, and trying desperately to keep his own heart intact. Every morning, Mark would wake up at 6 a.m., tired from the previous night's stress, yet determined to get Emma ready for school. He brewed coffee with shaking hands while checking the clock, worried he'd be late for his own work as a junior marketing executive at a mid-sized company. Emma, with her soft brown curls and wide innocent eyes, would usually sleep a few more minutes, cuddled under the warmth of the blanket, blissfully unaware of the struggles her father faced each day. "Daddy, can we have pancakes today?" Emma would ask, rubbing her eyes. Mark would smile tiredly, ruffling her hair. "Of course, pumpkin. Just like we always do." Their mornings were a blend of chaos and love. Emma had her little quirks, forgetting to brush her hair, misplacing her school bag, or insisting she needed to wear her favorite pink dress even in winter. Mark learned to navigate all of it with patience, though some mornings he would secretly wish for a helping hand. Life for Mark was simple but exhausting. He barely had time for himself, and his social life had become almost non-existent. Friends had drifted away, either too busy with their own families or simply moving on. The nights were the hardest. After putting Emma to sleep, Mark would sit on the edge of his bed, staring at the ceiling, the weight of loneliness pressing down on him. He often wondered how different life would have been if he had someone to share the burden, someone who could look at Emma and him with the same love he felt. Despite all the hardships, Mark loved his daughter more than anything. She was his reason to keep moving forward, his anchor in a world that sometimes felt overwhelmingly heavy. He took pride in her small achievements, Emma learning to write her first sentence, tying her shoelaces, or simply sharing a smile with him after a long day. Every accomplishment felt like a victory, and every laughter, a reward for all the struggles. Work, however, added another layer of stress. Mark's job demanded long hours, tight deadlines, and a constant need to prove himself. Yet, he never complained, because he knew that every paycheck helped keep Emma's world stable. On particularly tough days, he would leave work exhausted, but the sight of Emma running toward him with open arms would melt away every ounce of fatigue. On one rainy evening, Mark returned home later than usual. His clothes were damp, his shoes muddy, and his briefcase heavy with unfinished reports. But as soon as he opened the door, Emma squealed with joy, "Daddy! You're home!" She ran into his arms, hugging him tightly, oblivious to the chaos of the outside world. In that moment, Mark felt a surge of happiness, an escape from the loneliness that often accompanied him at night. Yet, despite these fleeting moments of joy, a small part of Mark ached. He missed companionship, not just for himself, but for Emma too. He wanted her to grow up seeing what love looked like, to have a role model for the kind of nurturing care he could give but could not provide in fullness alone. He longed for someone who could join him in bedtime stories, family dinners, and weekend adventures. Someone who could laugh with them, cry with them, and share the burdens of parenting. Mark's evenings were mostly quiet, filled with homework sessions and bedtime routines. He would help Emma with her drawings, listen to her chatter about school, and occasionally pretend to be a superhero to make her giggle. Then, once she was asleep, he'd collapse on the couch, scrolling through old photos on his phone. Pictures of Emma as a baby, Emma taking her first steps, Emma sleeping peacefully, all reminders of the precious little life he had built alone. It was a life filled with love, yes, but also with struggle. Mark's apartment, though neat and organized, felt emptier than he wished. He longed for warmth, laughter beyond the tiny giggles of his daughter, and someone to share quiet, ordinary moments with. Deep down, he knew life had more to offer than long nights alone and the constant juggling of responsibilities. He just didn't know when or how that someone would enter their lives. And then, one seemingly ordinary day, everything was about to change. The rain fell harder that evening, turning the streets into shimmering rivers of reflected city lights. Mark had just left his office after a grueling 12-hour day, carrying a stack of reports in his briefcase. His umbrella had turned inside out in the wind, leaving him drenched and frustrated. He cursed under his breath, wishing for a taxi that would never arrive. As he rounded the corner near his apartment, his old car coughed and stalled. He tried the ignition a few times, but the engine refused to cooperate. "Not now, seriously?" Mark muttered, running a hand through his wet hair. He looked around helplessly. The streets were nearly empty, the glow of streetlights flickering against puddles, and the rhythm of the rain was the only sound around him. Mark sighed, debating whether he should call a tow truck or walk home in the rain. Before he could make a decision, a voice called out softly from across the street. "Need some help?" Mark looked up and saw a woman holding an umbrella, smiling gently. She had long, wavy brown hair that shimmered under the streetlights, and warm hazel eyes that seemed to study him kindly rather than judge. There was a calmness about her that immediately made Mark feel a little lighter, even in the pouring rain. Yeah, I think my car just gave up on me," Mark admitted, embarrassed by his helplessness. "Let me take a look," she said, stepping closer. "I know a few tricks with cars. I grew up around mechanics, so don't worry, I've seen worse." Her confidence was comforting, and Mark felt a little hesitant but relieved. "I'm Mark," he said, holding out a wet hand. "Lily," she replied with a smile, shaking his hand firmly but warmly. "Nice to meet you, Mark. Don't worry, we'll get this sorted." As Lily crouched by the car, examining the engine, Mark watched silently, feeling a strange flutter in his chest. It had been years since someone had looked at him like that, someone who didn't know him at all, yet treated him with kindness and respect. While she worked, Lily asked him small, casual questions. "So, you live nearby?" she asked, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. "Yes, just a few blocks away." "It's been a long day," Mark admitted. "And it's raining cats and dogs, obviously." Lily chuckled softly. "Yeah, city rain has its own way of making everything dramatic." Her laugh was light, almost musical, and for a moment, Mark forgot the cold, the rain, and even the frustration of the stalled car. It took her about 15 minutes, but eventually, she managed to coax the engine to life. The car sputtered and then roared, alive again. Mark's shoulders relaxed in relief. "You're amazing," he said sincerely, handing her the umbrella she had left to fix the car. Lily smiled, shaking her head. "I just know a thing or two. It's nothing special. But, it looks like you've had a rough day. Can I walk you home? It's safer than standing here in this rain alone." Mark hesitated. He was usually the independent type, the one who refused help unless absolutely necessary. But something about Lily made saying yes feel natural. "Sure, thanks." As they walked, the rain slowed to a drizzle, and the neon lights of the city reflected off wet pavement like tiny stars. They talked about small things, work, the weather, favorite books. Mark found himself laughing more freely than he had in months. When they reached his apartment building, Mark hesitated at. Mark and Lily start interacting more often in everyday life, school drop-offs, grocery runs, park visits. Small, heartwarming moments. Lily helps Emma with drawing, baking, or bedtime stories. Mark notices himself laughing and relaxing around Lily for the first time in years. Emotional tension starts. Mark feels attracted but fears committing due to past loneliness. Emma slowly warms up to Lily, forming a tiny bond of trust and friendship. Lily joins Mark and Emma for casual dinners, weekend walks, small adventures. Emma's curiosity grows. She asks questions like, "Can Lily come over every day?" Mark's internal struggle, balancing fear of heartbreak versus desire for happiness. Deep emotional scenes. Mark shares stories about Emma's mother and his struggles. Lily subtly shows care, emotional support, and patience. First major misunderstanding between Mark and Lily. Mark's old insecurities surface, fear of losing Emma, fear of emotional vulnerability. Lily misreads Mark's distance, feels hurt. Emotional climax, tension between wanting to be together and fear of change. Emma senses tension, feels confused or upset. Mark reflects on how important Lily has become to both him and Emma. Lily communicates her feelings openly, showing patience and understanding. Heart-to-heart conversation between Mark and Lily resolves tension. Emotional bonding, hugs, apologies, laughter returns. Emma finally sees them as a united pair, feeling secure. Fun family activities, picnic, zoo, baking, art projects. Moments that show deep love between all three, small gestures, inside jokes, bedtime hugs. Mark fully opens up emotionally, embracing Lily as a partner. Emma enjoys having both parental figures around. Scenes filled with laughter, warmth, and emotional depth. Mark reflects on his journey, being a single dad, meeting Lily, learning trust and love. Emotional dialogues, importance of family, love, and hope. Lily supports Mark through a minor crisis, could be work, school event, or health scare. Emma's voice adds innocence and joy, highlighting the beauty of their new family. Story reaches emotional peak with the realization of love, safety, and happiness. Glimpse into their future, birthdays, holidays, school events. Strong visual scenes of a happy little family. Emma narrates or Mark reflects, life was hard, but love found us. Emotional closure, hope. Family unity, and a sense of contentment. Final reflections from Mark, gratitude, hope, and fulfillment. Emphasis on the power of love, kindness, and second chances. Subtle moral for audience, even in difficult times, family, love, and trust can transform life. Ends with a heartwarming family scene, all three together, laughing, hugging, and smiling at the future.